like what was Nicola's mannerisms like? What was she like?
Oh, it was hilarious. She was so petrified to
Yeah.
start with. She first requested that she had an escort in the room because 5'1" nurses are so dangerous to taking you out. She walks into the room, won't look at any of the people she's about to sack or anything like that. Just like focused on everything but making eye contact with the people whose life she's about to ruin. Sitting in her chair, getting ready to give her media type answers, kind of thing, and she's a bit scared, but she's so overconfident, and that's why her lawyers were probably so scared she was going to just blurt out all the bloody plans of everything because she's not very freaking smart. Um, we were asking her some pretty hard hitting questions, and she's making like no logical sense, and she starts getting defensive. And as a cross-examiner barrister, that's what you love to see. Is their witness getting flustered because they losing more and more credibility, all the time, right? And there's this one question, like she's getting pretty snappy. The barrister goes like, so you're a vaccinologist or a virologist? And she's like, what's a vaccinologist? And I'm like, someone who specializes in vaccines. Like, well, they don't have an official title under this or this or this or this or this. And we're like, yeah, but the dictionary says they exist, and there's someone who specializes in vaccines. And just answer the question: are you a vaccinologist? Yes or no? She goes, no. She always wanted to justify anything against her with like a speech, and even the judge at some point had to say, Nicola, just answer the freaking question. And it was so awesome seeing her just being like just taken down a peg. You're not a virologist. You're not a vaccinologist. You're not an epidemiologist. You're a glorified bloody pediatrician who has no understanding of any of this kind of stuff, right? And you're just on a power trip, and the whole world knows it. And when you're being cross-examined, you have no power. You don't have the protection of just saying, I'm not going to answer your questions like in a media thing. And she was just getting more and more and more frustrated and getting snappy at the most ridiculous things. There was one question where we said, you know, um, you know, Northern Territory, Canberra, Queensland's about to drop theirs, WA has dropped theirs, Tasmania has dropped theirs. All these other states have dropped their mandates. Why do you still have it? And she goes, they're not all states. Two of those places are territories. And I'm like,
Oh, so
everyone has rolled their freaking eyes straight away.
So she's like one of those woke people that like she'll always try and find a way to get
gaslight.
Yeah, she's a gaslighter.
And then we had so much to destroy her on. If we'd had days and days and days of cross-examining, which is what we needed, it would have been comedy gold. There was this other point where we show her this study by the Cleveland Clinic, one of the biggest studies ever done in history by one of the biggest clinics in the world, that clearly showed natural immunity destroyed your vaccine immunity. And she's like, she starts the conversation by saying, I'm the chief health officer. I'm over everything. I've covered everything. I look at all papers and everything. That's my job. Who do you think I am? And we're like, have you seen this paper? She's like, no. And I'm like, well, you just said you covered everything. She's like, well, I covered what's important. I'm like, all right, well, can you read me who the paper's written by? The Cleveland Clinic. Have you ever heard of them? Yes. And are they big? I'm not going to answer that. You've heard of the Mayo Clinic? Yes, and they're big. Yes, and they're just about as big as the Cleveland Clinic. Yes. She had to admit that this massive study that she'd ignored, she was so much confirmation bias, just picking studies that went in her favor. And we had to give her 15 minutes. She's like, I don't quite, I've just seen this for the first time. I'm like, go and read it. There's a room. Give you 15 minutes. You can read it, understand it. And we're just sitting there twiddling our thumbs, waiting for her to walk back into depth. And we just go, so this thing clearly, by a highly reputable organization, much bigger than you, full of experts in vaccinology, immunology, all that kind of stuff, have concluded that recent infection is completely 92% better than 5 jabs. And the more jabs you have, the more likely to have COVID. That's the conclusion of this study. And she just dead silence. it appears to be the result of the paper. and then, but they must have made some kind of mistake. I haven't had enough time to read it to tell you what that mistake is. That's how much her ego was through the roof.
So she was going against the Mayo Clinic. That's how much she wanted to win.
Yeah, literally, she's just so caught up in her own ego.
Do you think though she's like, I don't know, surely you can answer this, but do you think she's like, is it actually her, or do you think she's just being like told? Like, do you think
some puppets are told, and some others are just left to their own devices?
Yeah,
because they're so stupid, they just follow it and go for it.
So you think she's a convenient puppet?
Well, what we need is really a recording of someone like a Nicola Spurrier in her own private capacity, just chatting normally, where she doesn't think she's being recorded.
Do you reckon I should invite her into the? Do you think she'll come on my stream and have a chat with me?
You could try.
Me, you, Nicola, Jay.
Well, part of me was thinking of this. The most hilarious thing I could do, now that Health have announced that they're going to drop the mandate, I represent the most pro-vax person. Because I'm a lawyer, I'm supposed to represent everyone.
Yeah.
And say, this is insane. We want 5 jabs for everyone. You know, we've got a new vaccine. We want that. We want Nicola to have the first one, and I want to administer it to make sure she's having a real vaccine for change. And then I take it to court. I take it to the same tribunal where I was fighting against the mandate, saying, I'm fighting for the mandate. We want it back. It's unsafe. Unvaccinated people are discovering it. And basically, I get to cross-examine her on dropping the mandate. There's nothing stopping me from doing that, and I feel like it would be one of the most crazy things to do legally. But it makes sense. How can you bloody change your mind now? What has changed? So, I'm planning on getting her back in the witness box over and over and over again if this state lets me.